Welcome in, guys, to another episode of the Fly High Wi-Fi Mental Health Podcast. Myself, I am Praz Sharp or Ryan, and we have Mrs. Wi-Fi here or Alyssa. We will be discussing two topics that we have not went over yet. We will be talking about divorce rates and phobias. Um, One that I know nothing about, and the other one I've seen in real life through a lot of stuff in the military, my family, and everything else. So I will let you lead off with what you would like to.
I guess we'll do divorce rates first.
Divorce rates, all right.
Based off the last podcast you had mentioned you wanted to hear the divorce rates and whatnot. So,
Right.
um, there's a common mistake or misunderstanding about divorce rates in the U.S., and it's that it covers around 50%, but divorce rates are actually at its lowest since been in years. And studies say it's because of each generation viewing marriage a different way.
Okay. Which is understandable.
I have all the generations broke down,
Okay.
but right now in 2001, the U.S. marriage rate was 14.9 marriages in the last year per 1,000 women, and it's actually declined, so there's less marriages going on.
And that's what chat's saying right now is because nobody gets married nowadays.
But the divorce rate dropped to 6.9 in the last year versus the 9.7 divorces per 1,000 women.
Okay. So it went down, but like everybody's saying it's because less people are getting married.
That's essentially what it says is divorce
Right.
rates are lower because people are not getting married.
Yeah.
It says Alaska and Utah had among the highest marriage rates at 23.5 and 22.3. So,
Okay. So Utah. Y'all want to get married, go to Utah
or Alaska.
or Alaska.
Massachusetts had a marriage rate of 11.8,
Okay.
which was at the nation's lowest for Massachusetts. So, and then New Hampshire had a divorce rate of 4.3.
It's pretty low.
It doesn't say how many people got married though.
Right.
So,
Isn't I can
um, so there are 6 different generations right now.
6 different generations, okay?
6 different generations in the U.S. right now. There's the GI generation, which is known as the Greatest Generation. These people were born from 1901 to 1926. One of their characteristics is a strong sense of duty, civil responsibility, and wrong and right. So based off of their views of marriage, once you're married, it's death do you part. So no matter what happens with
Absolutely. They stuck to their vows.
yep, they stayed together. Like divorces or having children out of wedlock, it was simply like unacceptable for those generations. They had high marriage rates and low divorce rates just because of the views that they had towards it. No matter what the situation was, they kind
Right.
of just stayed. The next generation is the mature silence generation.
Mature silence.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They were born between 1927 and 1945. This generation is also known as the silent generation. Um, they fought in like the Korean War, Vietnam Wars. They also experienced the post World War II economic boom. But with them too, they had the same views as the generation before them. So there was low divorce rates there just because of the views that they had.
Okay.
Baby boomer generation, that obviously comes from the two generations before. They were born in 1946 through 1965. This generation was embraced by rock and roll, social change, credit cards, and television.
Okay.
With 7 million people, it's one of the largest single generations in history.
Wow. Okay.
Their attitude towards divorce, marriage, and family reflect the changing tides. So this is where the kind of
Divorce
big
rates
shift.
rise. Okay.
This is where the shift in divorce rates rose because they were going through most of like the feminist movements and stuff like that. Women in this generation entered the workplace, so that's where this changed too.
Yeah.
Was women were making their own money, so it kind of allowed that, I guess, opportunity to leave if they wanted to.
Okay. Yeah, not so reliant on the man being the sole provider for the family.
Um, and in this generation, the divorce rates actually doubled between their ages of 55 and 64.
Oh, as they got older.
As they got older, it doubled.
I
And
wonder.
then for 65 and older for this generation, that number actually tripled. So the older they got, the more they were saying, no, I don't want to deal with this.
Wow, that's something I wouldn't expect because you spend all that time together and you really don't want to give up at that point over all them years, and then all of a sudden you just say it's time.
Yep. So this generation is the first generation that viewed divorce as an acceptable way to deal with an unhappy marriage.
Okay.
So Gen X is the next generation. They go from 1965 to 1980, which is actually smaller than most of the other generations we just mentioned.
Okay.
Gen Xers remain married at higher rates than the preceding generation, so they kind of still had the view of divorce being acceptable because they had divorced parents, which was normal, but they had a lower rate of divorce.
Okay. It kind of goes back and forth a little bit.
So millennials, they're born between 1981 and 2000. I've also seen it's only 1981 to the end of 1996. So kind of wherever you see is where the generation kind of falls.
Okay.
In this generation, they were generally raised by involved parents, but they were divorced. There wasn't as many that were together. As far as marriage and divorce compared to other generations, millennials continued some of the Gen X trends. However, the marriage rate is at its lowest in years at 26% compared to 36 for Gen X, 48 for baby boomers, and 65% for the silent generation.
Okay. I grew up in a divorced household myself. So my dad, they actually split up, divorced, got back together for years, broke up, got back together, and then my dad remarried in like 90 or 2001. So, and he's still with his current wife, my stepmom.
I grew up in a divorced parent household too, so, but
Man.
this is where we were saying millennials put off marriage or avoid it altogether at higher rates than ever.
Okay. So our generation, okay, that's understandable.
Like,
Yeah,
not wanting.
no, not taking the plunge, guys. I'm not doing it.
So this is where the generational evolution and ideas of marriage and family start. So millennials kind of started that view of like, I don't really need a family. I don't need to get married, X, Y, Z. They kind of pulled away from that like more traditional background.
Okay.
And then there's Gen Z.
Gen Z.
They're the generation that's known worldwide to not have a life without cell phones, laptops, or video games. And then, but I think I jumped in. No. Gen Z is actually, I had to make sure I wasn't skipping over something. Gen Z is actually starting to record numbers of births at the rate of the baby boomers. So they're going to create either their own generation being huge or the next generation being even bigger than the baby boomers.
Okay.
So I thought that was interesting when I was reading that, because they're saying that we have such a low birth rate right now that
I
at
wonder,
least when you
that's I think that's understandable because, like you said, the divorce rates are down too.
mm-hmm.
So marriage rates are down.
But marriage rate and divorce rates still decline within this generation. They're just having kids with outside of wedlock. So they're
Yeah.
away from that traditional view of you have to be married before you have kids.
I can't read what Alex wrote.
That is what I have for divorce rates and the generations.
Okay, so the generations, obviously, the very first one you read off was the ones that stuck it out. They were the ones that you set the tone for us that divorce was not an option. You stick it out through no matter what. And now we got the generation that doesn't even get married. They're just out here having a good old time doing whatever they want and being willy-nilly.
Yeah, because their views of marriage have changed.
And there's so many things that can play a role in that. It could be social media. It could be how they were raised now. I don't know. I see marriage as sacred. I'd been married now for 9 years. We had our ups and downs. We almost divorced. So we fought through it, and we're doing great now. And I don't see any reason for us to ever get divorced. So it's just something else. I know a lot of people been married and divorced, remarried. I got actually a friend that just got remarried to his fourth wife. I personally don't know how that works, because after one, I wouldn't get remarried unless that was for a great purpose, like health insurance or something for them if they needed it. But as far as like getting remarried, it would be tough.
I agree with that. I think, I don't know if like we take how we were raised and whatnot, and that's more of our view on it being very sacred and you choose that person, but then there's also the other points of views behind it as well.
Right. And growing up in a split household, it kind of puts a doubt in your mind about marriage. Do you want to get married? Do you want to take the risk of going through it we were raised in? And I never looked at anything different, because my dad and my mom were great when they were together, and they were great when they were apart. So it didn't really affect me as far as that, even though my mom had her little extracurricular activities. So
my parents were not good together.
Okay.
It actually got better when they divorced. So like you see that kind of sight behind it of, and I know a lot of people that have said the same thing, like their childhood got, even though it got a little more complicated, it actually got better for them when their parents got divorced, because they weren't around like all the fighting and stuff like that at that point. So they were out of that like toxic environment.
Right. Muffin said, I filed for my first divorce because I couldn't take the abuse anymore. This marriage, you will either have to kill me or die, because I ain't filing for nothing. She said something else, but I can't say it. No, and then Jerry said, my wife tells me I'll be buried before I get divorced. Wow. So, you know what? That's good, though. That means that the work's going to be put in and you're going to fight for it. but both people have to fight. You can't have one person fighting for it and the other one with one foot out the door all the time. It doesn't work that way. It will end in divorce or
And I do
anything
think
else.
I have like I guess more recent views of if it is like an abusive relationship and whatnot, then divorce is very
Yeah.
much so the advice you should take.
Infidelity, like
Yeah, there's
that
different
stuff.
things.
Yeah, there's so many different things that could create financial is probably one of the biggest problem marriages have. I will be honest. That's one of the things that was going to create me and Chantel to split was financials and communication. There was lack of communication. Finances weren't in order. Money was being spent where it needed to be spent, and yeah, definitely infidelity. Right, there was none of that in our marriage, thank God. So I don't. That would be a hard one for me to come back from. Would be infidelity. Like the other ones, like you can get through, but the abuse is hard to take in too. You never can. We're not talking just physical, guys. We're talking mental, like verbal. All that stuff matters. It's all a form of abuse, and shouldn't be tolerated. Am I saying people don't change? No, because there's people that if they have habits as such as drinking or drugs or anything like that that can create their anger and then they can change. I wish you could see chat right now. I really wish you could.
Have to send me screenshots or something of it.
I will, because Alex is on one. I told you, chat and myself, we're all on one right now. It's been a day. Everybody was wild in chat earlier.
Good. I'm glad they're bringing the energy here.
They are bringing the energy, but it's inappropriate for me to read.
It's okay. Nobody else needs to know.
Yeah.
Just send me the.
I sent you a picture. No, I'll send you a picture shortly. I can't do it right now because you're using your phone. All right, chat. We got anything about divorce rates before Alex talks about his supporting single mothers? Oh man! All right, so guys, we're gonna move on to phobias as in a whole.
Yeah, we're not. This time I'm
Muff.
gonna break it.
We do have Muffin said, "Why is divorce such a bad thing?" Sometimes it is better. I'm not saying divorce is always a bad thing, but people are always so quick these days to divorce instead of finding out what was creating. But like there is the major things such as abuse, infidelity, and stuff like that. But we're coming to like communication and financial and all that stuff that falls under that of not cheating and abuse. Those things can be worked on. Those things are something that's a disconnect between the two involved in the marriage.
And that's just our personal view. It doesn't mean that other people have to view it
Right.
that way.
And that could be just something. I don't suggest that anybody stays in an abusive relationship or one that cheats and isn't doing infidelity. It just not saying if you do cheat, it can't be fixed because it can be. There's a lot of marriages that are stronger after it because they actually figure out what was creating the problem. And they have to talk through it, go through counseling, you know. But communication is probably one of the most important things in a marriage. Sometimes if you don't grow together, you drift apart and forget why you love that someone. And yet feelings do change. That is true.
And in that too, like whatever your view is on it, like they're saying, we are constantly changing. We're not the same person we were last year. We're not the same person we were the year before. So like that person has to be willing to go through those changes with you.
Right. And so you got to grow.
Mm-hmm. If you come home and say, I want to like change my career to this, like, are they going to stick through it with you to do that? Or they have to be ready for, and the same for them, like it's back and forth, like they're going to change just as much as you are, so you have to be able to be on that constant will of
Uh,
what's next.
I had a counselor once when we were going through everything say, don't stop dating your spouse. Don't stop getting to know your spouse. And it's so true. You can't just think they're the same person 10 years later because people change. They really do. They just are creature. That's what we do.
We also live in a time and age where like there's constantly new things.
Yes.
Sorry, the puppy's like zonked out on the couch.
You want to
And
take a picture so bad right now, but your phone's being used, right?
it's so cute, but it's also very concerning because I just used his out.
Never stop dating your spouse. Yes, absolutely. You also have to have date nights. Yeah, you guys got to set like time aside. If you have kids, what I just read something. It was like um every it's every 3 days have a night to yourself without the kids. Every 3 weeks take each other on a good date outside of the house. And then every 3 months take a trip without the kids. So it's like the 3-3-3 rule. And it makes sense. You got to can't give up. You got to put the effort in.
No. Odin.
And this has been a big topic for chat. They're all over this one.
I didn't think it was gonna be.
I didn't either. They're literally talking amongst themselves, talking about everything.
Good.
Yeah.
So it's all about.
Yeah. What do you got for phobias?
Okay.
Is there a phobia of fear of marriage?
I'm sure there is like issues or something like that for you.
Yeah.
But it's not in my list of examples of what phobias are.
Okay.
So phobia is a type of anxiety disorder. So we've talked about anxiety. So it stems from that causes an individual to experience extreme irrational fear about a situation, living creature, place, or object.
Okay.
When a person has a phobia, they often shape their lives to avoid what they consider to be dangerous. They imagined the imagined threat is greater than the actual threat posed by the cause of the terror. So they make it like in their head, they amp it up more than.
Absolutely. I get that. That's why phobia, right?
Mm-hmm.
As we grown to know it. Jerry loves spiders, he said.
Just like feet.
Wow, she said it, Jerry, not me. Not me. Oh man. I needed that. He said I'm tired of both your shit. Oh, good one. So that was great. I needed that.
You're welcome. Sometimes I have good comebacks.
Oh yeah.
Phobias are diagnosable mental health disorders. So you can be diagnosed for your specific phobia.
Okay, so it is like down to the specific phobia. That's good.
The person will experience intense distress when faced with the source of their phobia. This can prevent them from functioning normally and often leads to panic attacks. So it kind of builds off of.
So it intertwines with other things. It can go into anxiety.
Mm-hmm. In the U.S., approximately 19 million people have phobias. Your first symptoms tend to develop between 15 and 20.
So 19 million people are diagnosed with this phobia. Wow. That's a number.
Mm-hmm. And then phobias affect both men and women. However, studies have shown that men are more likely to seek help for them.
I
Which
think
is
that
kind of,
might be a first too.
yeah, I was gonna say it's kind of like that women just won't go do it. And I don't know if it's based on the phobia, they're just too afraid to go get the help, or what would play in a part of that. What?
The chat. I can't with you guys today. Jerry. for, for the love of God, Jerry. Yeah, right, Muffin? Muffin said men are actually doing something first.
Okay. So there's three types of phobias. There's specific phobia, which is an intense irrational fear of a specific trigger. There's social phobia, which also can be called social anxiety. This is a profound fear of public humiliation or being singled out or judged by others in a social situation. And then agoraphobia. This is a fear of situations from which it would be difficult to escape if a person were to experience extreme panic, such as a lift or being outside of their.
I'm gonna sit up. My posture's terrible.
So there's a long list of what symptoms can be: a sensation of uncontrollable anxiety when exposed to the source of the fear, a feeling that the source of the fear must be avoided at all costs. So this is where they start to like change their life to just avoid it. Not being able to function properly when exposed to the trigger. Uh, Acknowledgement that the fear is irrational, unreasonable, and exaggerated, combined with the inability to control the feelings. So like they understand that it seems to be dramatic, but they still can't like hold back that emotion when they are around it. Some physical effects of this would be sweating, abnormal breathing, accelerated heart rate, trembling, hot flashes or chills, a choking sensation, chest pains, butterflies in the stomach, pins and needles, so like your whole body can feel, confusion, nausea, dizziness, and a headache.
Okay. I can't even with chat right now.
I'm just gonna ignore you.
Oh man.
So there's complex phobias, which can be paired with multiple different phobias. So for the agoraphobia, where they're afraid of like they can't get out of a situation or something like that, it's
Okay.
often paired with claustrophobia, which would be a fear of tight places,
Claustrophobia.
being constrained or confined places. So they can kind of tend to pair together. So if you have that one, it can kind of cluster into others.
Okay.
Um, so some different types of phobias that are within the US are aerophobia, which is the fear of flying. There's a driving phobia, so if you're driving a car. Zoophobia, which is a fear of animals.
Good name to put
Aquaphobia,
it.
which is a fear of water. So you can have a blood phobia, which is just a fear of injuries involving blood. Tunnel phobia, fear of tunnels. Uh, so you can literally have a phobia for anything, essentially.
Right. And some of these they're making it pretty obvious to identify with the word that they're putting there. So
So on this list, I don't know how to say the words, I'm not, but there's actually a fear of blushing. So like when your face turns red, they don't want that sensation. So it's been diagnosed a phobia.
that's crazy. They literally have a phobia for anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's why 19 million people have them.
Yep. So some of the causes
But mom,
Is like, yeah, he wants to go outside. It's unusual for a phobia to start after the age of 30 years old unless something traumatic happens. Most begin during early childhood or teenage years. That's why I was saying earlier that most of the symptoms start between ages 15 and 20.
okay,
These can be caused by a stressful experience, a frightening event, or a parent or household member with a phobia that a child can learn. So it's not passed down through genetics or anything like that, but they can learn from the fear that their parents have, that they create their own fear.
that's a good study.
Um, how the brain works during a phobia. Some areas of the brain store or recall dangerous or potential deadly event. So this kind of ties a little bit how we talked about PTSD and it affects your amygdala. So in a
Okay,
phobia, it's the same response that amygdala gets triggered, and it's what's linked behind the phobia. So you kind of induce that fight or flight hormone within your body and leaves you either in the panic attack or whatever comes from your phobia.
okay,
So there are some medications that you can take. So there's beta blockers. These kind of help reduce that physical symptom of that anxiety. There's antidepressants, which affect the serotonin levels in your brain, so it can counteract the phobia that you might have. In huge cases, they have people who carry around tranquilizers because they have such a huge phobia of what's going on.
tranquilize. Okay, a little extreme.
Um, and then you can do obviously like the behavioral therapy, which would come from a counselor. So they could do desensitization or exposure therapy, where you first think about it, then you're shown like pictures, then you go to the place or you're around that whatever your fear might be. And then, for example, if it's you're afraid of a plane, then you'll go to an airport.
Okay, to
You'll get on a
try to embrace the fear and get over it.
yeah, then you'll get on the plane, get back off, and then the next time, hopefully, you're flying plane.
Muffin says, "What about a phobia about having a phobia?" This is what I'm saying. I can't with these guys today. What is going on?
I mean, it's possible that that's a
Right.
phobia.
You're scared of phobias. You're a phobia of phobias.
So the big takeaway is phobias can be a source of genuine ongoing distress within your body. And then if you have a phobia, kind of seek help for it. Or if you think you have a phobia, maybe reach out and figure out if it's actually a phobia or not.
Yeah. Make sure you guys seek actual help. Don't Google it. Go see somebody. Google will get you more worked up than anything. Because
And Google
you're gonna read 94 other things and think you have everything. Then you're gonna become a hypochondriac. And then your fear of that fear is now bigger. Go see somebody with medical degree and get the answers you need. All right, check. Oh, go ahead.
so that's what I got.
That's what you got.
What
All
I got.
right. See, some people are in here having a fear of the podcast ending. So, you know.
Mm.
Oh man, this has been a good one. This is the most interaction in chat we've had since we started this, so that's a good thing. Appreciate you guys all for being here, even though half the stuff you guys wrote in chat was not appropriate for me to read or say.
I want to see the picture of it.
I'll send it to you. man. Where's it at? Alyssa. All right.
Next time, maybe Shaylin will be on. She'll be here for 2 weeks. Depends on her schedule that she has here.
Okay. She ready to be on the podcast?
I don't know. I'm not gonna ask her. I'm just gonna put her in it.
Oh shoot! Better get the computer working by then. You got 2 weeks.
Well, if I sit her in front of the computer, then it's gonna be more noticeable that I'm up to something.
Touche. Then she's gonna hear my voice in Discord anyways.
Well, yeah. Once she's in it, she's in it.
Oh yeah, you're stuck. To death to us. Oh shoot! Chat, you guys got anything on phobias besides being goofy today? Oh, Alex says while you're here, he wants to know how Guam was.
Guam was amazing. It's such a different world and lifestyle there. It's very relaxed and what do they call it? Island time. You'll do it when you get to it, kind of thing.
Dang.
But no, it was amazing. It's very beautiful. I want to go back, so gotta plan that trip.
Muffin says, "Where's my shot glass from Guam?" Sheesh.
Get it next time for you.
Yeah. All right, guys. If that is all we got, we're gonna conclude. I just want to thank you guys for being here. It means a lot. Remember that we are on all major platforms. Make sure you guys, if you can, like them. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. The more we get support from you guys, the faster we can reach out to more people. And that's really all we're trying to do here is spread the awareness for mental health and try to prevent suicides as much as we can. And knowledge and awareness is huge. The power of social media is out there. We just need to make sure we use it in a positive way. So in 2 weeks, we might have a special guest. She just might not know it. She will be here. So on behalf of Fly High Wi-Fi, I want to thank you. And we will see you in 2 weeks. Bye.